Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we are specifically going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons in context to The Wild Sea by Felix Isaacs. Brand new tabletop role-playing game. It's been coming out for almost 2 years. It's actually been, under construction for about 2 years, and it just dropped, and it's actually available. It's, you can purchase it, right, as an actual physical product. And the reason why I want to talk about it today is The Wild Sea by Felix Isaacs. Let's talk it through. What exactly is this thing, right? It's a tabletop role-playing game. It's not Dungeons and Dragons, right? So why are you talking about it, Scott Garibay? We'll get there. Thanks for your patience. All right. So the Wild Sea is a tabletop, is an independent, right? So I believe there are three spheres of there are three in the tabletop role-playing game sphere. There are three overlapping circles, right? There is Dungeons and Dragons, OSR, and Indie. Okay. Now Dungeons and Dragons is king, right? It easily sells more than all of OSR and India combined, right? The OSR is second. So as far as power and prominence and presence, Dungeons and Dragons is king. It is a number one. Nothing beats it. Not even OSR and Indie combined beat it, right? But then next is OSR. And I'm not sure. Yeah, with Pathfinder, yeah. By the way, I consider Pathfinder an OSR game. Why? It's a copy of Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, which is literally 20 years old. So yeah, if you're a copy of a game that's 2 decades old, you're OSR, okay? Please. Old school rules, right? Because you're literally old, right? Like you're literally 2 decades old, right? So the reality is that, quite literally, it's actually a copy of D&D 3E, right, which came out in 1999, right? Like, so, yeah, you're literally 25 years old. Yes, Pathfinder is absolutely an OSR game. Now, legitimately, Pathfinder 2 Remastered may be a break from that, right? Because by removing alignment, that is a massive disconnect from its original source, which is D&D. But I want to stay focused here. Sorry, excuse me. All right. So, and then Wild Sea is a shining gem in the indie space, okay? Now, this will surprise people. I do not say that Dungeons & Dragons should be the only game you play. I insist Dungeons & Dragons be 51% of your play. It should always be the majority of your play. Now, why do I never talk about tabletop role-playing games under any other tabletop role-playing games? First of all, I love tabletop role-playing games. Oh yeah, that gets weird whenever you say I love, but then do your words match your actions? Maybe it's unfair for me to say I loved other tabletop role-playing games. Let's say it this way. I adore tabletop role-playing games other than Dungeons & Dragons. Some of my favorites are Blades in the Dark. Index Card RPG is a personal favorite. I actually own an original painting by Ingrid Bernal, who is the creator of Index Card RPG. That particular art style, Index Card RPG, I'm just an absolute huge fan of. John Harper's Blades in the Dark is an absolute favorite. Shadowrun it's super, super important to me. I absolutely love Shadowrun. It's just Dunkeljahn's Will. I'm a huge Shadowrun fan. So why do I never talk about other tabletop role-playing games? Well, Scott Garibay to save the world, right? Like every YouTuber under the sun hates Dungeons and Dragons like everybody hates America now, right? Like, it's just cool. It's cool to hate D&D now, and the whole world is rolling against it. There's a guy who has a Greyhawk Grognar, just like F WotC, F Hasbro, like, you know, bye, I'm out of here. Like, goodbye, WotC, you know, like, did the ubiquitous required I'm gone Dungeons and Dragons 5e video, right? And it's just become cool, just like it is cool to hate America today. It's cool to hate D&D. Well, Scott Garibay ain't cool. I ride with D&D. I am loyal, right? And I started my journey with D&D in 1982, and you'll put me in a pine box before I stop buying. There will never be a D&D canon hardback released on this planet that I don't buy day one, until they literally put me in a pine box, right? It's just I ride with D&D. That's the whole of it, right? I love all these other tabletop role-playing games, but I no longer feel I am free to talk about them because the whole world is just lining up to castigate and down Dungeons & Dragons. And it really does. Can you point me to a single channel that is actually positive about D&D? One, like Professor Dungeon Master? Nope. Nerd Immersion? Nope. D&D gave both those gentlemen their 100,000K sub buttons, and both of them were like, my celebration of my 100,000K sub button, which came from nothing but my coverage of Dungeons & Dragons, my celebration will be complete castigation, a complete abandonment, complete, insults and fury and, and just disdain, right? It's just because I'm the only person left. Can you point me to a single positive channel? I know a channel. I know some channel creators. They do content every single week, and they do not like D&D 5e. They are now they're in a zone where the creator was like, oh yeah, the main driver on the channel literally talks with people every day, 2-3 times a week. No longer is every day. But just absolutely disdains Dungeons & Dragons 5e. Just has no passion for it, right? Not excited about, I can tell you this, his heartbeat is not the D&D canon hardbacks. I'll tell you that right now, and it's just hugely good. So I don't feel free. I don't feel like I have to hold up the flag for Dungeons & Dragons because who else will? Who's left? Right? Ginny D's turned her back on it. Professor Dungeon Master's turned his back on it. Bob World Builder's turned his back on Dungeons & Dragons. Who's left? Right? Is there a single person in the world willing to say a single positive word about Dungeons & Dragons? I'm the only one. I gotta hold it down because there's nobody left, right? And so I'm taking a minute to talk about WildSea. So thank you for your patience, and sorry I took a little longer on this one to get to the point. Let's talk about what did WildSea do, and why am I talking about it? Because it just beat Dungeons & Dragons, right? In what? All right, okay. So it beat Dungeons & Dragons in layout. It has a better layout than the majority of D&D canon hardbacks, if not every D&D canon hardback. Its layout is spectacular. It is absolutely beautiful. Okay, so first of all, let me explain how I judge that. So one, I downloaded the free 150-page, fully playable, fully functional, free WildSea game, which I highly recommend you download immediately. And I'm sorry to do this, I do not recommend you buy it. And I will tell you right now, there is a massive problem happening in tabletop role-playing games right now. I actually don't think that the OSR and the indie tabletop role-playing games, I don't believe any of them are actually functional commercial products. Dungeons & Dragons is the only people in the world who are actually able to make a profit and move the ball with tabletop role-playing games. And the reason why is they realize the sale of tabletop role-playing games has nothing to do with good rules and nothing to do with good books or nothing to do with good art. It has to do, the only thing in the world that makes Dungeons & Dragons a success in tabletop role-playing games is that it understands it is a force of cultural power. It understands that, right? And because of that, it has spread. It has an amazing set of art. It has amazing art, amazing rules, and amazing layout. All are fantastic. None of that sells anything to anybody. What sells Dungeons and Dragons is Stranger Things, Funko Pop, Magic the Gathering, Creo when it was selling them, Lego, right, and Vox Machina and Matthew Mercer and all the cool things that excite people, right? Because the reality is you can go right on to D&D Beyond right now and get everything you need to play the Dungeons and Dragons for free, right? And the reality is books don't excite people anymore. We are in a, print is dead, right? So the reality is you can sell books to super intellectuals like me, right? But we're such a small group, you're never going to be profitable that way, right? So the reality is you have to excite people with modern media, right? And that's the thing that allows Dungeons and Dragons to succeed. And because I'll tell you, WildSea is a phenomenally written, phenomenally fantastic art, fantastic writing, but layout that literally beats Dungeons & Dragons. Literally beats Dungeons & Dragons. First of all, it's landscape. I'll tell you this right now. I love the D&D canon hardback. You know that, right? But I'm like you. I got complaints about Dungeons & Dragons too, right? And I could say them here because I up it most of the time. If I did this 50 videos out of 55, then you could say I was a D&D hater. But there's things that frustrate me. And I'll tell you right now, the shape, the literal physical shape of the Dungeons & Dragon book has all kinds of problems, right? It should be far shorter. WildSea is not shorter, right? But it's landscape, and that's a brilliant idea. We should absolutely shift the Dungeons & Dragons D&D canon hardback to landscape, and the reason why is literally every computer screen is landscape, right? Most computer screens are landscape, and so this would help the digital experience match the physical experience, right? They're never going to do it. They're never going to change the shape or the size or the length of the D&D canon hardback. It's just not going to happen, right? I desperately wish it would. It's never going to happen, right? Not for at least 25 years, I don't think. And honestly, every year it goes by, it's going to be harder to do, right? But this landscape layout is phenomenal. It is so comfortable and beautiful and easy to read and gives these panoramic views for the art. It is wonderful. The other thing is Felix Isaac has used color, bullet points, circular edges around pieces of information, beautiful white, just clear white pages, right? I love the parchment look in D&D 5e, but it makes the books hard to read. The text doesn't pop off the book. The layout is just simply better. You can read the rules very, very easily in WildSea, and Felix Isaac did a phenomenal job, right? And I don't know if he did it or if he just got somebody who did. I don't care which. He gets the credit, right? So Felix Isaac is responsible, or he quite literally did the layout on WildSea, and it is spectacular. I've never seen a better presentation of information for how to play the game, how the world is structured, than I've seen in WildSea. It is it's the best layout I've ever seen in any tabletop role-playing game ever, period, and in sentence, right? Especially in the core rulebook. Also, just the physical book itself, they did something that I so desperately wish that D&D would go to. They actually made the cover, the slipcase for the core rulebook, the Dungeon Master, literally the Game Master screen. I would love if they would print, the DMG, the PHB, and the MM, and then make a slipcase like this. Just make a slipcase like this so that it actually covered all three of those books. It is phenomenal. And brilliant and innovative and quite literally beautiful. The physical book for WildSea is unparalleled on any book I've ever seen, right? And it is truly spectacular, right? Now, let me be clear, I've only held the book. I only own the free version, right? And I will tell you, I think this is super sad, right? I'm not going to buy this book. And I won't buy this book for probably 2 or 3 years, if ever. You know what? I'm sorry. I will never buy this book. I will ask for it for Christmas. And either my parents or my family will get it for me. And the reason why is I cannot believe this. This continues to happen in the table. Why did Felix Isaac give out a 150-page fully functional game, right? There's no possibility that I can drop $60, $80, $100 for the physical book if you've already given me 60%, 50 to 75% of the game fully playable, 3, 6, 9, 12 months worth of content for nothing. And they just did exactly the same thing with Blood and Dew, which I think is phenomenally foolish, ridiculously foolish. And the reality is, here's the issue. This is a sad thing, right? Thank you guys for letting me go on and on about WildSea. I'm really excited about it. I didn't even get all the topics I wanted to talk about on WildSea. But the reality is, I think WildSea is brilliant and beautiful and a fantastic tabletop role-playing game. But it absolutely proves that the tabletop role-playing game industry is a joke. It is not actually functionally, commercially effective, right? You literally have to give half your game. You have to give your game away fully functional to even get people to look at it, right? And once you've done that, there's zero incentive to buy it. Zero, right? Like it's just phenomenal, right? And the reality is, and here's the, let me get there. Oh boy. All right, wait for it. You ready? Every tabletop role-playing game in the world right now, in my humble opinion, other than Index Card RPG, Dungeons & Dragons, Shadowrun, Call of Cthulhu, I think that's it, right? Every single one of them, other one of them is a vanity project. And the reality is, I think WildSea is a vanity project. And anything that came off a Kickstarter, it's a vanity project. It's a vanity project. These things are not made to make money. And I think the vast majority of tabletop role-playing games do not make money. In fact, I just had a conversation with the guy who made Blood and Doom. He literally said that he put up his life savings on top of the Kickstarter to make that thing, right? And the odds of him making his money back are virtually none. Virtually none, right? He's everything in, like, I think maybe the top 10 tabletop role-playing games in the world are functional commercial products. Everything else, which means thousands of tabletop role-playing games, are literally vanity projects, including WildSea, which you have got to go get that free download now. It is amazing. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.